At the busy airport gate, the black pilot arrives calmly, but the arrogant staff mocks her presence. Passengers watch in silence, unsure what's happening. A shocking insult is thrown, yet her quiet strength unsettles the crew. The air grows heavy, and a hidden storm begins to form. "Excuse me, ma'am, this area is for real pilots. You'll have to wait outside." The words cut through the bustling noise of the airport terminal like a blade. Luggage wheels rolled across the polished floor, departure announcements echoed overhead. But every sound seemed to stop in that moment. Captain Maya Johnson stood there tall, poised, her uniform pressed to perfection. The 4 golden stripes on her shoulder gleamed beneath the fluorescent lights. Her dark brown skin glowed, her presence dignified, but the arrogance dripping from the gate agent's voice was undeniable. Passengers turned their heads. Some frowned, some whispered. A few reached for their phones, sensing the tension. Maya didn't flinch. Her eyes rested calmly on the young staff member who had blocked her way. He was no more than 30, wearing the airline's navy blue vest. His smirk carried both ignorance and confidence, the kind born from thinking no one would challenge him. "I am the pilot," Maya said quietly. Her tone even, steady like a stone in a storm. The staffer laughed, shaking his head. "Right, and I'm the President of the United States. Please, just step aside. The crew will be here soon." A ripple of uneasy laughter moved through the waiting area. Some passengers chuckled nervously, others looked uncomfortable. A middle-aged woman muttered, "That's not right." But her voice faded quickly under the weight of silence. Maya adjusted her cap slowly. Her hand brushed against the brim, not as a sign of submission but as a symbol of who she was. She belonged here. More than anyone in this room, she belonged in that cockpit. She took one step forward. "You're mistaken," she said softly. "The crew you're waiting for is already here." The staffer stiffened. His smirk wavered, but arrogance pushed him on. "Listen, I don't care what you're trying to do, but you can't just walk into secure areas. You people are always trying to bend the rules." The phrase "you people" hit like a thunderclap. Gasps rose from nearby passengers. A man in a business suit shifted uncomfortably in his seat, muttering, "That's out of line." Still, no one stood up. Maya's calm remained unshaken, but inside, a storm brewed. She had faced this before. Doors closed in her face, whispers behind her back, stares that doubted her ability. Every test, every license, every hour of training had been earned with twice the effort and half the recognition. She could feel every pair of eyes on her now. Her dignity was both shield and sword. A child's voice broke the silence. "Mommy, why won't they let her through? She looks like the pilot." The mother hushed the child quickly, her cheeks red with embarrassment. The staffer crossed his arms. "Ma'am, this conversation is over. If you don't leave this gate, I'll call security." Maya's gaze sharpened. Her voice lowered, carrying a weight that silenced even the overhead announcements. "Do what you think you must? But remember, you're about to stop the captain of this aircraft from boarding her own plane." The tension was suffocating now. A bead of sweat rolled down the staffer's forehead. His arrogance faltered, but pride pushed him to keep control in front of the crowd. From the corner, another staff member whispered nervously, "Is she serious? Look at the uniform, she's legit." But the first man shook his head stubbornly, unwilling to admit the possibility. Maya turned slightly, scanning the passengers. Some looked down, pretending not to see. Others stared at her with cautious respect. She felt their silence, an invisible jury, watching but unwilling to intervene. Then she looked back at the gate agent. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, not of joy, but of certainty. 7 minutes, she said quietly, almost like a prophecy. The man blinked. "What?" "You'll understand in 7 minutes." With that, she stepped back, her posture still proud, her eyes steady. The crew at the counter exchanged nervous glances. Passengers leaned forward, sensing a storm rising. Just beyond the horizon, the clock above the gate ticked. The silence deepened. Something was coming, and no one in that terminal was ready for it. The staffer tries to hold his ground, but Maya's cryptic warning of 7 minutes lingers in the air, leaving passengers and crew unsettled, unsure of what's about to unfold. The seconds crawled. The ticking clock above the gate felt louder than the rolling suitcases or the chatter in the distance. Every passenger at gate C14 knew something unusual was happening, yet none of them moved. Captain Maya Johnson stood near the boarding desk, perfectly still, like a statue of defiance wrapped in calm. Her navy blue uniform looked untouched by the chaos around her. The gold wings on her chest gleamed under the fluorescent lights, but her dignity shone brighter. The staffer, his name tag reading K. Miller, shifted his weight. He was trying to appear in control, but his clenched jaw and restless hands betrayed him. He raised his voice, letting it carry across the waiting area. "Ladies and gentlemen," Miller said, forcing a laugh, "we apologize for the disturbance. Please relax, everything is under control." The words rang hollow. The crowd didn't believe him. A businessman whispered to his colleague, "She looks like a real pilot to me." "Then why is he stopping her?" The colleague replied, "Because." The man hesitated. "Because she doesn't look like the pilots they're used to seeing." Maya heard every syllable. She didn't turn her head, but the words sank into her chest like cold steel. It wasn't new. It was simply louder now, said in the open, with an audience. Miller pointed toward the door leading to the jet bridge. "You can't go in there. Security rules? If you stay here any longer, you'll regret it." His tone sharpened, filled with authority he hadn't earned. Maya finally spoke, her voice steady. "Passengers deserve to know who's flying their plane." A hush spread through the room. All eyes locked on her. Her calm words carried more weight than his loud orders. Miller's lips curled. "Don't play games with me. You think just because you put on a uniform, you can fool people? I know how this works. Do you?" Maya asked softly. Her question wasn't loud, but it cut deeper than any shout. Miller leaned forward, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You're not what this airline wants standing at the cockpit door. You're not the image we're supposed to show." The venom in his whisper burned. Maya's heart tightened, but she didn't let it show. Instead, she studied him with eyes that held years of patience. Battles fought silently, victories uncelebrated. From the corner, a teenage boy pulled out his phone, starting to record. His mother nudged him, whispering, "Stop that." "No, Mom," he whispered back. "People need to see this." A ripple of phones began lifting, screens glowing. The quiet revolution of witnesses had started, Miller noticed. His face flushed red. He barked, "Turn those off. This is private business." But no one listened. In fact, more cameras turned on. Maya finally moved. She stepped closer to the boarding desk, her shoes clicking softly against the polished floor. She looked at the monitor behind the counter. Flight 728 to Denver. Boarding in less than 15 minutes. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were fire. "In 7 minutes," she repeated, "everything will be clear." Passengers glanced at the overhead clock. 11:23. They didn't know why, but they felt something coming. Miller laughed, though it sounded strained now. "What are you going to do, make the plane fly itself? You're wasting everyone's time." Maya didn't answer. Instead, she placed her black leather flight bag on the desk with a quiet thud. The sound echoed through the tense silence, like a judge's gavel. Inside that bag was her identity flight logs. ID, credentials that carried more authority than his entire badge. But she didn't unzip it. Not yet, because justice wasn't about proving herself to him. Justice was about letting his own arrogance destroy him. The whispers grew louder. She's definitely a pilot. Why won't they let her through? This is unbelievable. Still, no one moved to intervene. The crowd was split between curiosity, fear, and silent guilt. They knew what they were witnessing, but stepping forward meant risk. Risk most were unwilling to take. Miller banged his palm on the desk. Security is coming. You've got 1 minute before you're dragged out of here. Maya tilted her head, eyes calm, voice unshaken. 6 minutes left. The air thickened, like a storm gathering at the edge of the sky. The passengers felt it. The crew behind the desk felt it. Even Miller, beneath his bravado, felt it. Something unstoppable was approaching, and time was running out. Security is being called. Passengers are recording. And Maya repeats her countdown. 6 minutes left. The tension mounts as everyone wonders what's about to happen when the TV clock strikes. The buzz of radios broke the tense silence. 2 uniformed security officers appeared at the edge of the gate area, walking quickly toward the desk. Their heavy boots struck the polished floor with authority. Passengers straightened in their seats, phones raised higher now. The boy in the corner whispered, "It's happening." Captain Maya Johnson didn't move. She stood tall, her cap perfectly angled, her posture unshaken. Every second she held her ground was another second of silent resistance. Miller smirked. Relief washed over his face as he spotted the officers. "Finally," he muttered. "Now we'll handle this nonsense." The officers stopped beside him. One, a broad man with a trimmed beard, spoke firmly. "Sir, what seems to be the problem?" Miller jabbed his finger toward Maya. "This woman is impersonating a pilot. She's causing a disturbance, refusing to leave the area. I need her escorted out immediately." The officer's eyes shifted to Maya. He took in the details, the polished shoes, the crisp uniform, the golden stripes. For a moment, confusion flickered across his face. "Ma'am, can we see some ID?" he asked carefully. Miller cut him off. "You don't need to see anything. I work here. I'm telling you she doesn't belong." The arrogance dripped again, staining the air. Maya raised her eyes slowly, meeting the officer's gaze. "Do you always remove people without hearing their side?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, not loud but heavy. Passengers stirred, whispers building again. The officer shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't used to being addressed with such steady calm. "Ma'am, please. Just show us your boarding pass, your ID. We'll clear this up." Miller scoffed. "She's wasting everyone's time. Do your job." Maya's lips curved slightly. 5 minutes left, she said, her voice quiet but sharp enough to slice through the room. The passengers froze. The number was dropping, and no one knew what would happen when she reached 0. A woman near the front clutched her purse. "What does she mean?" she whispered. Another passenger replied, I think she's proving something." Miller slammed his hand on the desk again. "Don't listen to her games. She's stalling. Drag her out." The officers exchanged looks. Their radios crackled, but neither reached for Maya. Something in her presence, her confidence, her certainty made hesitation unavoidable. One of the officers leaned closer to Miller. "If she's not a pilot, why does she have a uniform? Why does she look official?" Miller hissed back, "Because anyone can buy a costume online. You don't get it, this airline has standards." The word standards landed like a punch in the gut of every witness. People shifted, some shaking their heads. The silent unease was turning into visible disapproval. Maya reached down, resting her hand gently on her flight bag. Her fingers lingered on the zipper, but she didn't open it. Not yet. Her eyes swept across the passengers. She could see their conflict, fear of speaking up battling with the guilt of silence. Then she turned to the officers. Her voice was low, steady, unshakable. In 5 minutes, the truth will walk through that door. And when it does, every eye in this room will remember where you stood." The bearded officer froze. He glanced at the door to the jet bridge, then back at her. Something in her tone made him hesitate. Miller threw up his hands. "This is ridiculous. You're letting her play mind games. Do your job." The younger officer finally spoke. His voice cracked with uncertainty. "Maybe we should wait. Just a few minutes." Passengers leaned forward, sensing the shift. The room was no longer entirely on Miller's side. His arrogance was starting to fray. Maya lifted her chin, her calm presence dominating the space. "4 minutes left," she whispered. The crowd gasped softly, as if her words were a countdown to something inevitable. Miller's face burned red. His authority, once unquestioned, now hung by a thread. He pointed at her again, his voice shrill. "You're finished. Do you hear me? Finished." But even as he shouted, his voice trembled. The passengers noticed Dot, and for the first time, so did he. The countdown continues. 4 minutes remain. Security hesitates, the crowd grows restless, and Miller's authority begins to unravel. Everyone waits for the moment she promised. The silence at gate C-14 no longer felt like fear, it was shifting into judgment. People weren't just watching anymore. They were thinking, questioning, whispering louder. Miller's face shone with sweat. His tie hung crooked, his vest wrinkled from his frantic movements. He had started this confrontation with smug certainty, but now every word he spoke sounded defensive, brittle. "She's not who she says she is." He shouted, his voice higher than before. "Don't be fooled by the costume." A woman near the boarding line spoke up, her voice clear. "That's not a costume. My husband was a pilot. I know what that uniform means." Miller spun toward her. "Ma'am, please stay out of this." But the damage was done. Her words lit a spark in the crowd. Another man added, "If she's lying, why doesn't she look nervous? Why is she calmer than all of you?" Heads nodded. People murmured agreement. Maya stood tall, her eyes soft but steady. She hadn't raised her voice once, yet the weight of her presence filled the terminal. 3 minutes, she said softly. Her words like a clock striking in their hearts. The younger security officer swallowed hard. "Sir," he muttered to Miller, "maybe we should slow down. This doesn't feel right." Miller snapped back. "Slow down? You want to let her humiliate us in front of everyone? She's making fools of us." But no one laughed. No one backed him up. His arrogance was beginning to sound like desperation. Passengers whispered louder now, some recording every second. One woman shook her head, saying, "I can't believe this is happening in public." A child asked his father, "Why won't they let the pilot fly the plane?" The father shifted uncomfortably, his silence an answer of its own. Maya turned her gaze toward the child, her expression softening. "Sometimes," she said gently, "truth takes a little longer to arrive." Her words sank deep. Even those who doubted her felt a weight they couldn't ignore. Miller barked, "Security. Remove her now." The bearded officer stepped forward, his hand hovering near Maya's arm. For a moment, tension snapped tight like a wire. But then he froze, seeing the certainty in her eyes. Something inside him resisted. He lowered his hand. Passengers noticed. A wave of murmurs rolled through the crowd. Hesitation was visible now, authority cracking at the seams. Miller's voice cracked with frustration. "You're all being played. Don't you get it? She's nothing." Maya didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She only whispered again, 2 minutes left. The words echoed across the gate, heavier than any order Miller had barked. A man in a gray suit stood up suddenly. He cleared his throat, his voice carrying strength. "If she says she's the pilot, let her speak. Let her prove it. Why are you so afraid of her?" The gate grew quieter. More passengers nodded in agreement. Miller's confidence shattered piece by piece. His arrogance was no longer commanding. It was exposing him. The security officers exchanged uneasy glances. They weren't sure whose orders mattered anymore. The system itself felt shaky. Maya kept her posture, her calm radiating like a lighthouse in the storm. "1 minute," she said. Her voice low but firm. The overhead clock read 11:29. The tension was unbearable now. Every second was heavier than the last. Miller's face twisted, his authority slipping through his hands. He grabbed the radio from the desk, shouting, "I want more officers here now." But his words were drowned out by the heavy click of the boarding door unlocking. Every head snapped toward the jet bridge. Someone was coming. The boarding door opens at the exact moment Maya's countdown reaches 1 minute. The crowd holds its breath, waiting for who or what will step through. The metallic click of the jet bridge door echoed louder than a thunderclap. Every head turned. The passengers, the security officers, even Miller, each one froze. Waiting. The door swung open slowly, like the curtain of a stage revealing the next act. A woman in a sharp navy uniform stepped through. She carried a tablet tucked under her arm, her ID badge gleaming. The golden wings on her chest glistened, just like Maya's. The crowd gasped. Another pilot. The woman scanned the tense scene instantly. Her eyes locked on Maya, then on the sweating gate agent, then on the frozen security officers. "Captain Johnson," she said firmly, walking straight toward Maya. "I was wondering why you weren't already in the cockpit." The room erupted in murmurs. The passengers leaned forward in their seats, phones rising higher to capture the moment. Miller's jaw dropped. His face turned pale, then red. What? Captain?" The second pilot turned her sharp gaze on him. "Yes, Captain Johnson." The senior pilot for Flight 728. A wave of whispers rippled through the passengers. Senior pilot. Maya didn't smile, didn't gloat. She only nodded to her colleague, her calm steady as ever. "Thank you for joining us." The younger security officer took a step back, his face filled with embarrassment. The bearded one muttered under his breath, "Oh no." Miller stumbled, his words tripping over his tongue. That can't be right." She can't be the captain." The second pilot's voice cut through his denial. "She's not just the captain. She outranks me. This flight doesn't leave without her." Passengers clapped softly at first, then louder, the sound spreading like a wave. The energy in the gate shifted. For the first time, Maya wasn't standing alone. Maya glanced at the overhead clock. 0 minutes, she whispered. Her prophecy was fulfilled. Miller's arrogance cracked wide open. This is insane. You people are making a mistake." His voice was shrill, desperate, clinging to authority that no longer existed. The second pilot faced him squarely. "The only mistake is yours. You stopped a captain from boarding her own plane." Gasps swept across the gate. A passenger shouted, "We saw everything." Another added, "You disrespected her in front of all of us." The boy with the phone called out, "It's all recorded." His mother didn't stop him this time. Miller's chest heaved, his authority slipping away. He turned to security. You have to do something. Don't just stand there." But the bearded officer shook his head slowly. His voice was quiet, almost regretful. "She's the captain. We can't touch her." The younger officer avoided eye contact, his shame written on his face. Maya finally spoke, her voice calm but heavy with truth. "The plane is waiting, and so are the passengers. But before we board, I need one thing to be clear." The terminal fell silent again. Every passenger, every staff member, every officer leaned forward, waiting for her words. She looked directly at Miller, her gaze sharp, unflinching. Respect isn't optional. Not for me, not for anyone. What you did today humiliated me, doubted me, reduced me to nothing in front of strangers is bigger than just me. It's what too many of us face every day. The passengers murmured, some nodding, some whispering agreement. A woman whispered, "She's right. I've seen it happen before." Miller's lips trembled. I didn't mean, Maya lifted a hand, stopping him cold. Don't explain. Actions are louder than excuses. Her words pierced deeper than any shout. The second pilot touched Maya's arm gently. Captain, it's time. The crew's waiting. Maya nodded, then glanced one last time at the passengers. Their eyes met hers, some ashamed, some inspired, all changed. She turned back toward the jet bridge, ready to board at last. But her calm voice left a final echo hanging in the air. This isn't over. The truth is revealed. Maya is indeed the captain. The crowd turns against Miller, but Maya hints that the story doesn't end here. Something bigger is about to unfold. Applause rippled through Gate C-14, soft at first, then louder, building like a wave crashing against the walls of silence. The crowd that had once looked down, whispering, now leaned forward with courage. Miller staggered back a step, his face blotched with red. The sound of clapping wasn't just noise, it was judgment. The boy with the phone raised it higher, calling out, "Everybody's gonna see this online." His voice carried the energy of justice long overdue. "Put that down." Miller snapped, his words trembling with desperation. "You can't record here." But the passengers ignored him. A woman stood, crossing her arms. "Oh, we can. And we will. People need to know how you treated her." Miller's hands shook. He looked at the security officers for support, but they stood still, shame etched into their faces. The authority he once wielded had dissolved. Maya remained quiet, her calm presence commanding more power than any order. She glanced toward the passengers, her voice steady. "I don't need applause. What I need is for people to remember what they saw here and what they didn't do." The clapping faded into silence again. Her words carried a sting. A middle-aged man cleared his throat, guilt heavy in his tone. "She's right. We all just sat here. We saw it. We let it happen." Another woman added, "I thought about saying something. But I was scared. Scared to get in trouble." Maya's eyes softened. Fear is powerful. But silence can be worse. Silence gives arrogance a throne to sit on. Her words landed like a verdict. Several passengers lowered their heads, ashamed. Miller tried again, his voice cracking. "Listen, I didn't mean any harm. It was just a misunderstanding." A man in the back shouted, "Don't lie. We heard you say you people. That wasn't a mistake." Gasps echoed. Miller's denial collapsed under the weight of witnesses. His arrogance, once bold, now shriveled into exposed prejudice. The second pilot stepped forward, her eyes sharp. "This captain doesn't need to prove herself to you or anyone. But today, you proved yourself to all of us." Miller's lips parted, but no words came. Passengers began filming more openly now, narrating the scene for invisible audiences beyond the terminal. "He stopped the captain from boarding her own plane," one man said into his phone. "Treated her like she was nothing." Maya lifted her flight bag slowly, placing it back on her shoulder. Her movements were unhurried, deliberate. Every step she took felt symbolic, a reclamation of space that had nearly been stolen from her. She turned to the passengers one last time before boarding. Her voice was low but carried across the gate. "Remember this moment when you see injustice. Don't just record it. Don't just whisper. Stand up. Even one voice can change everything." The boy with the phone lowered his camera, his young face solemn. "I'll remember," he said softly. His mother squeezed his shoulder, her own eyes glistening. Miller muttered again, barely audible. "I didn't mean it." But no one listened anymore. His words were dust. The second pilot gestured toward the jet bridge. "Captain, the crew is ready." Maya nodded, but before she stepped through the door, she paused. Her eyes swept over Miller, then the security officers, then the silent passengers. "This isn't about one gate or one flight," she said. "It's about a system that lets arrogance humiliate dignity. And systems only change when people refuse to stay quiet." Her words lingered like smoke in the air, impossible to ignore. Then she turned, walking through the open door. Her figure disappeared into the jet bridge, her calm dignity leaving behind an echo louder than any shout. The passengers were left in stunned silence, the weight of her challenge heavy in their hearts. And Miller? He stood trembling, sweat dripping, his power gone, his downfall only beginning. Maya walks onto the plane, leaving Miller exposed before the crowd. The passengers are shaken by her words, but questions hang in the air. What consequences will fall on the arrogant staff now that the truth is undeniable? The jet bridge hummed softly beneath Maya's polished shoes as she stepped aboard Flight 728. The engines idled, waiting for the command only a captain could give. Inside the cabin, the crew, already tense from the chaos at the gate, looked up, startled to see her enter. Her uniform gleamed under the overhead lights, her golden stripes a testament to authority earned through years of skill, dedication, and perseverance. "Captain Johnson," said a junior flight attendant nervously, We weren't sure what to do at the gate." Maya offered a small, calm nod. "I saw everything, and I trust you to do your part now. We have a plane to fly." The crew's tension eased slightly, reassured by her steady presence. They had been caught in a difficult position, forced to follow a gate agent's ridiculous orders, unsure of whom to obey. Meanwhile, Miller's voice crackled faintly over the radio, attempting to assert control. "Flight 728 crew, this is Miller. Listen, she's..." The cockpit door swung open behind Maya. The second pilot, already in position, blocked his attempt. "Miller, this is Flight 728. Captain Johnson is in command. You will cease any interference immediately." Miller sputtered, unable to speak. His arrogance had no footing in a place governed by credentials and skill. His authority outside the plane had collapsed. Here, it was meaningless. Passengers settled into their seats, whispers spreading. Cameras captured everything: security footage, phone recordings. The quiet power of the captain asserting her rightful place. Maya moved to the cockpit door, checking the logbooks and flight plan with methodical precision. Every motion was deliberate, unhurried, commanding respect without raising her voice. The second pilot glanced at her. "They really underestimated you, didn't they?" Maya's eyes softened but remained focused. Arrogance always collapses under quiet certainty. Meanwhile, back at the gate, passengers could still see Miller pacing near the glass windows. His face was flushed, a mixture of embarrassment and simmering anger. Several airline staff whispered among themselves, uncomfortable with his display, their loyalties quietly shifting toward Maya's dignity. Inside the cabin, Maya walked past the crew, nodding to each member, reinforcing authority through calm confidence rather than intimidation. A subtle but powerful message: respect is earned, not forced. The passengers aboard the plane noticed it too, the captain's serene control, contrasted with the chaos left behind. Murmurs ran through the cabin. One elderly woman whispered, "I've never seen someone handle humiliation like that." A teenage boy, still filming cautiously from his seat, muttered, "She's like a legend already." Miller's shadow, however, lingered at the gate. Airline managers had begun receiving reports. His foolishness and unchecked arrogance would soon have consequences, though he couldn't see it yet. Maya glanced at the cockpit instruments, confirming the plane's readiness. Her hands moved with calm precision, each action deliberate. She was not just asserting authority, she was demonstrating the dignity and skill that arrogance had tried to erase. "Cabin secure?" she asked, her voice quiet but commanding. "Cabin secure, Captain," the second pilot confirmed. "Good," Maya said. She paused a moment, looking at the crew and passengers, her calm aura filling the space. "Let's fly." The engines roared to life. The plane moved toward the runway with a quiet strength. Like a storm held in check. Back on the ground, Miller's phone buzzed incessantly. Emails, texts, and social media alerts detailed what had unfolded. His humiliation wasn't over yet, it had only begun. But aboard Flight 728, Maya remained untouched, calm, unshakable. Every movement, every glance, every word conveyed the quiet revolution of dignity prevailing over arrogance. The passengers leaned back in their seats, some still holding their phones, some in awe. All changed by the display of courage and composure they had just witnessed. As Flight 728 taxis toward the runway, Maya's authority is unchallenged aboard the plane, but Miller's coming downfall is already set in motion, ready to explode in the next chapter. Back at the gate, the atmosphere had shifted completely. Airline managers had arrived, alerted by countless calls, recordings, and eyewitness reports. Their eyes scanned the chaos-sweating staff, murmuring passengers, and Miller, who now looked smaller than ever under the scrutiny. "Mr. Miller," said one of the managers, a tall woman with sharp eyes, "please explain what happened here." Miller's throat tightened. I was enforcing protocol. "Security." The manager held up a hand, cutting him off. "Protocol? Forcing a licensed captain to wait outside the gate? Humiliating her in front of passengers?" Miller stammered. It wasn't personal." The manager shook her head slowly. "It doesn't matter if it was personal or not. Your actions caused public embarrassment, violated safety protocols, and endangered the reputation of this airline. You are suspended immediately." A ripple of gasps moved through the remaining passengers, and murmurs of approval followed. Even the security officers, who had hesitated, now exchanged satisfied glances. Miller's hand shook as he tried to speak again. "But you'll have a chance to explain to HR," the manager interrupted. "For now, step aside." Miller's authority had evaporated completely. The arrogance that had driven him to confront Maya had collapsed under the weight of truth and witnesses. Meanwhile, passengers returned to their seats aboard Flight 728, watching as news of the incident spread via their phones. Tweets, posts, and videos captured the moment: Miller's humiliation, Maya's dignity, and the crowd's silent support. Inside the plane, Maya checked the instruments again. Her calm hands moved deliberately, preparing for takeoff. The crew followed her lead, now fully confident in her authority. The second pilot leaned close. That guy really thought he could control the room. Maya's eyes softened but remained steady. Arrogance always overestimates itself. Quiet dignity doesn't need to shout, it only needs to exist. The passengers, still absorbing the events, whispered among themselves. One elderly man said, "I've never seen anyone handle that kind of disrespect with such calm. She's remarkable." A young mother added, "It's not just about him. It's about every time someone in power thinks they can humiliate another without consequence." The plane taxied to the runway, engines humming smoothly. Maya's calm authority filled the cabin, a stark contrast to the chaos left behind. Meanwhile, Miller was escorted from the gate, his face red with shame. Staff and passengers alike observed him, their judgment silent but clear. His colleagues avoided eye contact, unwilling to associate with the collapse of his arrogance. Back on the plane, Maya glanced at the passengers. "Remember what you saw today," she said softly, her calm voice carrying an undeniable weight. "Dignity cannot be taken from those who hold it, and arrogance always falls eventually." The engines roared louder as Flight 728 lined up on the runway. The passengers gripped their armrests, some inspired, some still in disbelief. With a final nod to the crew, Maya pushed the throttle forward. The plane surged ahead, gliding into the sky with the poise and control of its rightful captain. Below, at the terminal, Miller's reputation lay in ruins, a cautionary tale captured in countless recordings and stories. His arrogance, unchecked in public, had collapsed in front of everyone. And aboard Flight 728, Maya remained untouched, a beacon of quiet strength. As the plane ascends, Maya's calm authority contrasts sharply with Miller's ruin below. The passengers are transformed, but the question lingers: what lasting impact will this moment have on the airline system and its culture? Flight 728 leveled off above the clouds, engines humming with steady rhythm. Maya sat in the cockpit, her hands gliding over the instruments, each motion precise, deliberate, commanding. The calm of the sky mirrored her demeanor, a stark contrast to the storm of arrogance she left behind at the terminal. Below, the airline's internal communications erupted. Reports, videos, and witness statements flooded management offices. Miller's behavior was dissected, shared, and condemned. Emails circulated detailing violations of protocol, abuse of power, and public humiliation of a licensed captain. For once, the system responded swiftly. Meetings were held, HR documents signed, and formal reprimands delivered. Miller's suspension became permanent, and the airline issued statements acknowledging the incident and promising changes in staff training and diversity awareness. Passengers aboard Flight 728 watched the unfolding aftermath unfold on their phones, whispering among themselves. "He finally got what he deserved," a woman murmured, gripping her child's hand. "I never thought I'd see someone confront arrogance like that," an older man added. The sense of poetic justice was palpable. It wasn't loud, it wasn't theatrical, it was precise, measured, and lasting. The arrogance that had tried to humiliate Maya had imploded, leaving a lesson carved into the memories of everyone present. Maya glanced at the second pilot, who smiled faintly. "It's rare to see humility and courage win so clearly," she said. Maya shook her head slightly. "It's not rare. It's just quiet. Most people don't notice until they're forced to." From the cabin, the passengers watched with newfound respect. Some began reflecting on their own roles in daily life, how often they had seen injustice and remained silent. The moment had become a lesson, a quiet revolution in real time. Back at the terminal, the airline staff spoke in hushed tones. Colleagues who had once supported Miller now realized the weight of standing by arrogance. Some openly apologized for their silence, a small ripple of institutional accountability beginning to take shape. Maya, observing all this from the cockpit, felt neither pride nor satisfaction, only clarity. Calm dignity wasn't about revenge. It was about exposing truth, letting the system see itself, and giving people the opportunity to choose differently next time. Passengers leaned back, their eyes still glued to their phones, but their minds were active. Discussions bubbled up spontaneously. "She's a model of professionalism," one said. "Exactly. And look how it changed everything," another replied. Miller, by now, was nothing more than a cautionary figure, proof that unchecked arrogance has consequences, no matter how much power or authority one pretends to hold. Maya's hands rested lightly on the controls, guiding Flight 728 with calm precision. Outside, the sun set across the horizon, painting the sky with warm gold and soft purples, a quiet, cinematic backdrop to the story of dignity prevailing over humiliation. She turned to the second pilot, her voice low but firm. Every system has cracks. The difference is who fills them, arrogance or integrity. The second pilot nodded. Integrity always wins, in the end. Maya glanced over the cabin at the passengers. And every witness matters, she added softly. Even silent ones. Even hesitant ones. Change begins when we refuse to let arrogance go unchallenged. The hum of the engines, the soft chatter of passengers, the peaceful climb through clouds, it all felt like a testament. A story of calm strength, dignity, and the slow but certain collapse of hubris. Flight 728 cruises steadily, Maya's quiet revolution leaving a lasting mark on passengers and airline systems alike. Only one question remains. How will the final resolution cement her legacy, and what ultimate poetic justice awaits Miller? Flight 728 began its final descent toward Denver, engines humming with smooth consistency. The passengers sat quietly, some still scrolling through recordings of the incident, others simply absorbing the gravity of what had occurred. Maya remained in the cockpit, calm as ever, her hands guiding the plane with precise expertise. Every movement radiated control, authority, and dignity. The world outside the window stretched in soft golden hues of evening light, cinematic and serene. A contrast to the chaos she had endured at the gate. In the terminal below, Miller's humiliation continued to unfold. Airline communications documented every misstep, every arrogant word. The suspension had been upgraded to termination, and a formal report outlined the need for sensitivity and diversity. Training for all staff, passengers and crew alike reflected on the incident. The lesson clear: arrogance can crumble quietly but completely when confronted by calm, unwavering dignity. Inside the cabin, a young mother whispered to her child, "See what standing up for yourself can do. That's courage." The boy nodded, eyes wide. She didn't yell. She didn't fight. She just stayed calm. Maya glanced at the second pilot. Sometimes the quietest actions are the loudest statements. Passengers watched as she addressed the cabin for the first time since boarding. Her voice was soft, controlled, but carried an undeniable weight. Today, you witnessed more than a confrontation at a gate. You saw dignity stand against arrogance. You saw how one calm, consistent voice can shift a room, a crowd, a system. Carry that with you. The cabin erupted into applause, gentle but sincere. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Many held phones, already uploading stories of what they had seen. The moment was bigger than just this flight. It was a ripple of justice, spreading outward. Miller's shadow lingered in their minds, but only as a cautionary tale. Every action he had taken, every insult, every attempt to exert undeserved power, had collapsed in front of witnesses and evidence. The poetic justice was complete, quiet, inevitable, and undeniable. Maya leaned back slightly in her seat, her eyes scanning the sky through the cockpit window. The sunset painted streaks of pink and gold across the horizon. Calm, quiet, and powerful. The second pilot smiled. "You've changed everything today, Maya." Maya shook her head gently. "No, the change was already there. I just gave it a voice." People always have a choice to act, to witness, to stay silent. Today they acted. The plane touched down smoothly, rolling onto the taxiway with precision. The passengers, now fully aware of the story they had witnessed, began gathering their belongings, their conversations alive with reflection, awe, and a sense of justice finally served. Maya stood, adjusting her uniform, a quiet smile tugging at her lips. She moved through the aisle, nodding to passengers, acknowledging their courage and presence as witnesses. Every nod, every glance, every silent acknowledgement strengthened the truth of her victory. Back at the gate, the airline had already begun restructuring protocols. ensuring that arrogance would not again hold such power over a professional captain. Miller's absence was both symbolic and practical proof that accountability exists, even for those who once wielded unchecked authority. Maya stepped off the plane, her presence commanding respect without needing to demand it. Every passenger followed her gaze, feeling the weight of her dignity, the impact of her calm authority, and the satisfaction of witnessing poetic justice in motion. As she walked past the terminal, she paused, looked back toward the gate, and whispered to herself softly, almost as a mantra, "Dignity endures. Arrogance falls, always." The passengers, the crew, and even the wider system had seen it. The story, captured in recordings, whispers, and retelling, would travel far beyond the terminal and beyond Flight 728. And in that quiet triumph, Maya's legacy was cemented, an emblem of calm, wisdom, and the undeniable power of dignity prevailing over humiliation. The story concludes with complete poetic justice. Miller faces public and professional consequences. Maya's calm authority inspires passengers and crew, leaving a lasting impression that dignity and integrity always prevail over arrogance.